We're back with two Friday faves, Colin and Patrice, and a little bit of a spat broke out between a dust-up. That's a word that only gets used in settings like this. Between Ben Shapiro and one AOC. So this all started when Ben on his show said, if you had to work more than one job to have a roof over your head or food on the table, you probably shouldn't have taken the job that's not paying you enough. That'd be a you problem. AOC and many others did not like that. She pointed out that this is kind of a typical tactic to sort of put the blame for having a low wage onto the person rather than onto the society or the corporation that has paid them that low wage. And so he then wants to debate her. That's where we are.
So, Patrice, I think, look, I understand the point that Ben is trying to make here, but I mean, it's not very tactful, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it, which is you have to recognize that, like, yeah, people might be in jobs in which, you know, they don't have any of your options, or like that's what else are they supposed to do?
If the only job in your town is Walmart or McDonald's, what else are you freaking supposed to do?
Exactly. And I think that going after them saying, oh, you shouldn't have taken that job, that's just really, it's just, it's not tactful, it's not helpful, and it's also wrong. I mean, morally, it's kind of it's wrong.
I think I agree with you, especially morally. I mean, there's dignity in work, whatever that work is. And I think we need to be encouraging people, not hammering them because the type of job they have is not the best in the world. What's interesting, though, I think we can weave in this minimum wage discussion, which I think touches on a little bit, which is that there are a lot of people who do make the very barest wage in this country. But most of them actually move out of that within a year of working. So the idea of taking a low wage job and moving up is great. People also work multiple jobs, but only about 5% of the economy compared to what AOC has said in the past. And a lot of those people are not doing it because they have to, it's because they want to. So we need to really get at the data.
A couple things on that. There are a lot of reasons. That 5% number is the official government number. There's a lot of reasons to really question that. Number one, people are not telling the government about their side gigs.
It's about side.
Right? And also, they aren't accounting fully for the gig economy and the way that has changed the nature of work. So that's number one. Number two, you know, the top three professions, top three jobs in this country are cashier, retail sales clerk, and essentially fast food worker. All three low wage jobs. Those are the bulk of the jobs that this economy is creating. That's not a you problem. That is a societal problem.
That's a structural problem. And I think, look, a lot of Ben's argument, first of all, comes from the ivory tower of a very wealthy guy who grew up.
Very privileged perspective.
100%. But more than that,
ideological is what it is.
Well, it is. Look, he's almost promoting a feudal mentality, right? Like, hey, I was born of royal blood, and unlucky you, and that's the way it is. And that's not what America was built on, first of all. Secondarily, he ignores the data. And the data says in all the states where they have enacted raises in minimum wage from $12 to $15 an hour, those economies are on fire. Washington is doing fantastically well. Arizona, Phoenix is doing fantastically well. Everywhere that minimum wage has risen, not even in relation to what it should have over time, but just risen to $15 an hour and made it livable.
See,
every place is
I think this is quibbling over the wrong issue, which is like you don't want to take bad jobs and increase the wages of that job to make them sustainable. What you want to do is instead encourage the creation of better jobs, which provide good benefits.
I don't disagree with that.
But like right now, I mean, look, this is in the Atlantic. Is that the rise of wealth work is the largest thing in our economy? Manicurists, personal trainers, and all these other things. These are essentially quasi-butler jobs,
they're servants
which have
to the professionals.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
And also, they fluctuate heavily with the wealth of the people who consume these services.
But factory jobs were not always good jobs until they were unionized and organized and became middle-class jobs where you earned a good wage and had health care, et cetera.
Well, I hesitate to qualify what's a good job and a bad job. If you are generating value, whatever that value is, whether that's being a manicurist, that's not a bad job.
I'm not saying that work is bad. I'm saying that the benefits associated with that, the benefits associated with that are bad. The fluctuation in the economy around the supply and demand for that type of service, especially. What's the first thing to go whenever your pay hits?
Services.
Personal trainer, manicure. I mean, these are things you automatically put
anything extraneous. But look, yes, we need to create more jobs that are well-paying jobs. But people cannot elevate beyond their status if they're not paid a livable wage because they can't pursue the skill set to be able to work those jobs.
But then let's talk a bigger issue about reskilling. I mean, there are many jobs that are going to disappear because of automation. You talked about cashiers. You talked about, frankly, a lot of driving jobs as a truck driver are going to disappear. So I think we need to be elevating our workforce and thinking not just of the high school and the college students, the people who are 50, 40, and 50 who may see their career need to change entirely.
I think about it all the time.
Absolutely true. The big problem, though, is that there are not enough of those jobs that aren't going away to make up for the ones that are. And it's not just, it's not just factory workers' jobs or truck drivers' jobs. I mean, a lot of white-collar jobs are also threatened. I mean, this is one of the huge issues Andrew Yang obviously talks about a lot, but I think it's also really important.
Well, I will just say that the administration has been pushing on apprenticeships, and not just for blue-collar jobs, but for white-collar jobs. And when I wrote about it, one of my friends who is an accountant said she literally wants to set up an apprenticeship program so high school and college students can join her and become an apprentice and start their own. So I think we're starting to see some movement, but it's still very small scale.
It is very small.
Big issue, yeah.
Well, we also have this new issue of Rashida Tlaib and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar are not being allowed into the state of Israel. However, Israel's Interior Ministry announced that they will allow Rashida Tlaib in order to enter the country, but only in order to visit with her, I think it's her ailing grandmother.
In other words, not to actually do the job that she was elected to do.
But here's the thing. Israeli law says, so like, first of all, let's explain what BDS is. Boycott, divestment,
and sanctions.
And sanctions. BDS is viewed by the state of Israel as an attack on their sovereignty itself, as a policy proposal that recognizes Israel as a non-legitimate terrorist state. So their law is that you cannot enter the country if you support this movement. Now, these two congresswomen have supported this movement. I mean, Israel ultimately has the right to decide who can come into their country.
But you're leaving an important part of this out, which is that Israel was going to let these two congresswomen in until our own president also of these two congresswomen, intervened and pressured Bibi Netanyahu to make a different decision. And I think that is outrageous.
And
I think it was very much on the rocks here.
No, that's the real point here. Look, you cannot have a diplomatic conversation and say maybe this BDS movement is not where you should be. Come and experience Israel for yourself. Let's have a real conversation about it if you don't let the people in the country. And what happened to the rule of, hey, we have fights in the family here, but once we step outside, those fights in the family go away. We are no longer Republicans and Democrats. We are the United States of America representing our interests around the world. And whether or not we agree with countries, nobody agrees with all countries in the world. The president shouldn't be calling saying don't let these women in as a vindictive move. That is the most unleader-like thing that I have seen him do yet.
Even AIPAC, which is staunchly, hawkishly pro-Israel, and backs this president and Netanyahu on nearly everything. Even they broke with Bibi on this one.
I do know that. At the end of the day, I do think that, Israel did not need to necessarily, or shouldn't be seen as like responding just to the president. I actually think that they said, you know what, these young women wield a lot of power and a lot of influence. And by us letting them in, given that their agenda is not just for fact finding, but they actually want to undermine the legitimacy of our sovereignty, then no, they don't need to come in. And we have that right to say that.
Netanyahu noted this in his tweets, which is that the United States has not let in a member of the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament, in before because of an affiliation with a movement that I think we classified as a terrorist organization at some point. So it's not unprecedented.
These are not terrorists.
No, absolutely not. I'm just saying how the Israelis look at BDS is an existential threat to their country. They have a law on the books to say if you support this, you're not going to come in. And ultimately, Israel gets to decide who's going to come in and who doesn't.
But Colin, there's a difference between criticizing policy and being, and this is the part that's really problematic, is the president wants to classify these women who happen to both be women of color, one of whom has Palestinian origins, as anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, and criticizing the policy, criticizing the administration does not make you anti-Semitic.
Exactly. I was going to say, look, you can criticize a country and not be against a cultural or religious group, right? Criticizing policy and politicians has nothing to do with criticizing people's religious or cultural backgrounds, period. These are two completely different things. And not letting a representative in the country simply because you didn't agree or don't agree with groups they belong to is setting a new low precedent for diplomacy, between two democracies that are arguably some of the most important in the world.
Should America let in somebody into our country who says that they don't believe that America has the right to exist, or they support a movement that boycotts and divests and sanctions the United States? I would say no. I would say I don't want that.
Wait a minute. Donald Trump would let Kim Jong-un in the country tomorrow if he wanted to have a walk around the National Mall.
Nuclear weapons. So we don't get nukes.
And let's just
They've already got it. And they're launching new missiles today.
Let's not forget that these two women have made very anti-Semitic comments in the past, and we know exactly where their heart is on this. So, you know what? If Israel wants to say one stays out and one comes in because of her grandmother, then I hope so. And I'm glad to see that she said she's going to abide by the restrictions that they're putting on.
Just to wrap this up, I don't know what comments you're referring to with Rashida Tlaib. I think she gets lumped in with Ilhan Omar a lot, and so I'm not sure what comments you're referring to from her. Ilhan Omar has apologized for comments that people found offensive. There was a vote on the floor of the House to, repudiate hate and whatever.
That was a whole
I think it's, look, Republicans get very upset when people say that the president is racist. But that same reluctance to look into the heart of someone else and cast judgment doesn't seem to apply when it comes to Ilhan Omar.
Well, we're not going to solve that one today. We debated it, man.
I'm sure we'll be back to this.
Thank you to both Colin and Patrice.
Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Next week on Rising, Bernie Sanders' senior advisor, Jeff Weaver, is going to come back to Rising. We're going to talk about the issues inspiring Bernie 2020 and maybe even make a comic book reference.
And a book that will leave you saying, Mitch, please. Author Matt Jones charts Mitch McConnell's career in politics. You won't want to miss our conversation. Another conversation you won't want to miss is our new weekend segment, Rising Q&A, where we answer your questions about anything from politics to puppies. Look for the first Rising Q&A this weekend on the Hill's YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Enjoy your weekend, guys.